Good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fourth webinar in the series of webinars as part of the Choose France Tour 2021. In exactly 5 minutes, we are going to talk about the much talked about topic and one of the current hot picks of the season, women in science and technology. I use the word season because we are approaching the International Women's Day in a week's time, and we just celebrated International Day of Women and Girl in Science on the 11th of February. So today we are going to hear from our four eminent panelists who are present here, who I will be introducing shortly, who are all women, obviously, about how this new world has opened doors to many women, irrespective of countries, whether it is in India or in France, to occupy the different strata of education and the scientific community. So we will also clarify by the end of the session, hopefully, given all the opportunities today we have, did we women actually crack the glass ceiling or not? So stay tuned. And before we get into the discussion, let me do a quick round of introduction of our dear panelists. So here we have Patricia Conde, who is an assistant professor at ISEP Engineering School, and her teaching activities concern data science subjects such as machine learning, probability, and statistics. So welcome, Patricia. And the next three panelists are all from physics, but this does not rule out the possibility that women can join other sectors of science and technology. But this is purely coincidence. That's a disclaimer. And so welcome Ausrine Bartasyte, who is the Deputy Director of Femto ST Institute. She completed her PhD from Institut National Polytechnique Grenoble in 2007 and was a postdoctoral research assistant at the University of Oxford for a year after that. So after that, we come to their Indian counterparts, and among them, the first one is Padmashree Rohini Godbole, who is an Indian physicist and academic professor at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, and a much sought after communicator of science, often delivering talks to young students, scholars, and scientists on, I think, everything under the sun. And in 2021, I'm really glad to announce that she received the French Order of Merit, awarded by the President of French Republic for her outstanding work in promoting the visibility of women in science. Welcome, Rohini. And last but not the least, we have a very young panelist, Bulumoni Kalita, from the northeast of India, from the state of Assam. And she's working as an assistant professor in the Department of Physics in Dibrugarh University, and she did her postdoc as a DST Nano postdoctoral fellow at JNCSR Bangalore. And her PhD was from Tezpur Central University in Assam, and her field of research interest lies in computational material science. Welcome, Bulumoni. So I'm really glad that we have this very interesting panelists on board, belonging to, though I wouldn't say there's a lot of diversity in terms of subjects, but at least belonging to different strata, different age groups, different levels of experience. So I hope to have a very engaging and interesting discussion with all of you today. And let's hope that we can inspire at least some young girl aspirants, also men, who are who are also watching us, to spread out their wings and fly high. So welcome again to one and all to the session. And so let's start by discussing some statistics about the women students in your university. So I would like Ausrine or Patricia to answer this about how many female students do you have in your universities? And also I would also like either of you to throw some light on whether there are any difficulties or discrimination that these young women students they experience while applying for internships or job opportunities post their graduation from your university.
Okay, thank you very much. I start.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So I am Patricia. I work for ISEPS. It's an engineering school located in Paris. So I will talk about my institution. We have about 25% of students who are women, and there is no any discrimination, at least not explicitly. I mean, every measure, every program is open to everyone, absolutely everyone. There is no any discrimination. neither for the sex or nor for the origin or for the country. However, I remark that depending on the measure, some girls prefer some measures than others. For example, if the measure is about systems, information systems. So in this measure, there are about 30% of girls, whereas there are other measures like, for example, embedded systems, which are not the favorite of girls. But there is no any discrimination. The program is open for everyone, and also the internships or the job or advertisements. Usually in France, they have in the title or in the headline, there is always an acronym which is H/M, which stands for no, I mean H/F, which stands for homme femme, which means men, woman. So both can apply. So at least explicitly, there is no any discrimination from my point of view, and in general, according to the discussions I have with other colleagues, or from my point of view and experience, there is no discrimination.
Okay, Ausrine, what do you think? Is this the same in your university?
Yeah, so basically we have, well, we are engineering sciences also, like physics, automatics, informatics, electronics. So we have also about 20% of women. And we don't make any difference if it's woman or man. Everyone, the doors are open for everyone. We don't make any, pre-selection. We would be happy to see more women. And I think the main reason, as already mentioned by Patricia, that the problem is stereotypes, that the young girls don't want to come to some disciplines thinking that they are for men. So this is a problem of a culture, of the believings, of the thinkings, and so on. But the sciences are open. And we try, probably we'll discuss later, how to increase and then encourage to come to our sciences, but we don't make any difference. And basically we see that we have 20% of women in our universities, and then we find 20% of PhD students. So we don't make any, selection. Is it that at the beginning from school, secondary schools, comes about 20% for applications, and then we get 20% in the later. So we need to encourage coming, and we need to break the stereotypes.
No, it is very, very important to put forth this point. And I also think I hold on to this point that you mentioned, Ausrine, about the percentage of women here, because I think we will highlight in the last part of our session, because I have something to ask regarding that. But then now for the time being, I will shift to Rohini and Bulumoni to ask if, do you think there is some sort of subject-centric stereotyping or skewness in the ratio of men to women ratio exists in India?
Okay. I should say the following, that we don't have data, actual numbers where we can divide them among subjects in science. All right. But what I do know, that the percentage of girls in undergraduate education, I'm only beginning from undergraduate, not school, undergraduate, postgraduate, right now it has been increasing since the independence, and now in general the percentage of women in non-science branches and science branches is actually very similar. There are about 40% girl students across disciplines, in whether it is arts or whether it is commerce or whether it is science or whether it's medicine. So in India, in terms of getting education, I don't have distinction in science, out of science. Now you can ask the question whether in science there are stereotypes, because stereotypes come everywhere. So then the question is, do I have more girls coming into biology and chemistry compared to physics and mathematics? So in terms of students, at least at the master's level, I would say that there are more girl students in biology, in zoology, biology, all the biological sciences than physics and mathematics. Engineering, again, about 15 years ago was only maybe 10 to 15%. But now even engineering students have, women fraction has increased to about 35 to 40%. But again, when you go to the institutes of higher education, which are renowned, so like just to set the stage, if you're thinking, how many women students are there in Ecole Normale Supérieure, and what is the fraction of the women students in some other university, say Sophia University or something like that. The same way, if I look at the fraction of women students in Indian Institutes of Technology, or even Indian Institute of Science, it is much less than this 35 to 40% that I'm telling you. So the point here that I'm trying to make is that in India, as it is, because India is many worlds in one world, it's a very complex situation. On the whole, on the average, in the education, there's not much stereotyping, except for the fact that in engineering, we still don't have many mechanical engineers or something like that. By and large, engineering disciplines, women would go for computer engineering. Then it doesn't matter whether they're in embedded systems or anything else. They go there all uniformly. So that is the way things are. I hope that gives you a picture of what the numbers are.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have subject-wise division
No.
in sciences.
Yeah, the main thing is to give a general idea whether there is a skewness which is existing. And as you mentioned, Rohini, very rightly, that India is many worlds in one world. So Bulumoni is somebody who can actually comment on that, because you are coming from, the educational hub in India, which is Bangalore, and which is very strong in many disciplines. So it can be very different from a place in the northeast of India, like, for example, Assam, where Bulumoni is coming from. So do you think such a trend exists in a state like Assam as well?
Yeah, thank you, Ambika, for giving me this opportunity. Of course, as all others are saying, here also it is a state university. Dibrugarh University is a small state university in Assam. So the statistics says that as of 2021, there is exactly 50% girls in the science streams in the post-graduation level. As Rohini madam is saying, of course, in the engineering section, the percentage is little bit less. It is around 30% here in our university. But I'm sure, because I have the experiences of other universities in Assam, so there also the same ratio exists. So basically, there is no gender discrimination in terms of subjects, because I'm mentioning about science as a whole. But as I have seen in my department also, that exactly 50% of girls I can see every year when they get admitted into the new course. So there is no discrimination.
Okay, good to know that the world is changing, and so that takes me to the to Patricia first, and then maybe Ausrine next, or whichever order you want to take it. About is there anything that your university is doing very actively in order to correct the skewness in certain subjects for women, or do you think that it's not required? It's a very matter of choice. Who wants to take it? Ausrine wants to take it, or Patricia wants to take it?
Okay, I can start.
Okay.
Well, as we mentioned, we don't make any discrimination, but as the women are minority, we need to take that into account to ameliorate the situation, and in case to avoid any possible discrimination. And in that case, that's why in the selection committees, when employment processes and so on, it's encouraged very strongly 50% women in the selection committees. So we have a selection committees which are 50-50. Even it's not a real percentage in each daily life, we have this 50-50%. And yeah, so it helps, like, to avoid any possible discrimination, that women should be selected in the same way as a man. We do not encourage positive discrimination in employment itself. We always say the best, it should be taken. Then we have many different things which is try to encourage women to come, like visiting schools, secondary schools, and so on, and to bring more women in our institutions, also to show make women more visible, to attract, because it was shown by studies that women tend to apply for the positions which are, for example, directed or guided by another woman. So a woman tends to go to another woman. So personally, in my group, there is majority of women, when in other groups there is like minority of a woman. So we try to put the women more in selection in everywhere, to attract other women, to make more visible in general. Also, we have, for example, in our institution, women chapter, which helps the woman in each daily life to find friends, and many of these better integration, and not to feel lonely when you are in minority is not always easy. Yeah, and we try to help to break these stereotypes as much as we can.
No, thank you, Ausrine. And Patricia, what is your take on this? What is your university intending to do or are doing to support women students?
Okay, before talking about my university, I would say that in general, the country, in France, recently there were many efforts to give a special place for women, so they can be the same rights, the same participation in science as men. I can give some examples. For example, there is the L'Oréal Foundation, which alongside with UNESCO, they created an award, a recognition for young PhD students, and only for women. So this is to encourage women to do PhD, because in general we know that if we talk about degree, I think that in average men study much long time than women. So this is one point, and there are another points also performed by the doctoral school, which are, for example, that in the jury of PhD thesis, they obligate to have 50% men and 50% women. And so those are recent, I would say, law or rules that we have to accept, and that's how it happens. And so that's the country, so France. And now talking about my institution, in particular, as I mentioned, that there is no discrimination at all. The opportunities are exactly the same for men and for women. However, our institution participates actively in different events where they promote the participations of women in even either in size, or for example, of women who have a high position in enterprises. For example, there are some talks given by the for example, CEO or some enterprises, and only women, just to show that women can also have a good salary, a good job, and there are also opportunities for women. Okay, so that's those are some examples. So we do, and we invite some people for the conferences to talk about it.
That's very positive. So I think it's a nice message to all the the women students who are looking for studying in France. So because we have only around 30% of the students are women who are going to study to France from India. So I was just wondering whether is it because they don't have a handful of information like this about the whole the positive attitude and the encouragement that you provide from your side. So I hope through these kind of webinars and initiatives, we can actually promote this message, saying that there's absolutely no discrimination for girl students, and you're all free to leave your country to fly wherever you want to do your studies. So at this juncture, I would like to ask Rohini and Bulumoni about the taboo of for Indian women to go and study abroad. I know that it has changed a lot over the years, and particularly I think Rohini has seen it over the years how the interest for going international has changed. So, do you think there is still a bit of worry in the families? Because I know that in India a lot of decisions are taken by the girls or the boys' families. So, do you think there's something like that?
That's a good question. And particularly, I can begin with a personal anecdote because, as you can imagine, being the age that I am, I went to the US to do my master's in 1974. So I remember that at that time, some of my extended family, and that time, as it is, very few Indian students went abroad, and even fewer women went abroad. So at that time, I remember my extended family worrying about this and telling my parents that they shouldn't be sending me away because when I come back, I'll be highly educated and then they wouldn't be able to find a match because in India, the husband is somebody decided by the family. And I will become too old. And then my younger sister, who is only 1 year younger to me, will have to wait to get married till I come back. So luckily for us, neither my sister nor my parents worried about it. But to tell you or to accept, to sort of give credit where it is due, situation has changed from 1974 to today, thankfully. I think the idea about going outside India to study has now caught up quite a lot. Particularly, Europe actually has caught up much more attention in the last 2 decades, I would say. And now I think the taboo about not going out of the country has, has reduced, let's say, in the middle class, in the city, urban areas. I would actually like to argue, and this I referred to in my sort of made a reference to it in my earlier answer, that part of the reason the Indian Institute of Science or IISers do not get as many girl students as men is partially because we still don't like to send our young girls when they're young out of town. So that I can see Bulumoni also nodding her head because that is, but again that is partially because India it is the way it is. And I think there is a certain reduction in the taboo. And I wish, and again, just to complete, I should have said this earlier itself, that for example, IITs, the Indian Institute of Technologies, which are like, and ISERs, both are only in fixed places, which means that if you want to go there, you have to leave home. And over there, we find that the girls are less in IITs than they are in ISERs, which are Indian Institute of Science and Education Research. And there, the difference comes from the, I believe, but we don't have research on it, the exams themselves. So the gender can come and affect things in so many different ways at so many different steps. Particularly for the taboo, I am reasonably sure that Bulumoni agrees with what I am saying. I don't think this says this situation. I have a reasonably correct reading, I think, of the situation.
Okay, Bulumani, do you second Rohini, or do you have something different to say?
I agree with Professor Madam Rohini Madam. Actually, what I see in my region, basically, is that apart from this hesitation of sending girls outside, Madam, actually, it is not only in case of sending girls. It is sending the children outside. But nowadays, from the last 2 to 3 years, what I have noticed particularly is that they are not sure whether they will get some permanent settlement at the end of spending so many years in doing research or something like that, because that job security is also affecting that matter. Because I understand that people they have changed their minds over the years. So that is not only one issue, but this job security is also affecting our students. If I get time afterwards, then definitely I will highlight some of the factors in this regard. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we'll come to that point after, as you indicated, when we have time. So, thank you for giving all that inputs regarding this, regarding the readiness to go and study abroad. Then coming to a very important question, and which is actually sometimes an enigma for me as well, because as all of you have mentioned, there is no positive, there is no negative discrimination against women at the university level. They are provided equal job opportunities, whether it's in India or France. And we do see a lot of women compared to the earlier years, both in India and France, going for higher education. But then what I notice is that not just me, but many of us notice is that as we climb up the ladder in hierarchy in terms of being a director or a CFO or a CEO of a company, or is it in academics, we see very less women. I mean, I'm not saying there are no women at all, but there is some sort of a huge skew what's happening. So what do you think is the reason for this thing? So I would start with Rohini and Bulumoni, and I would like to take it with Ausrine and Patricia at the end.
So, Bulumoni, do you want to go first? That's fine by me, and I can take it up.
Yeah, yeah. So as I just mentioned, there are few factors. Actually, it is noticed by me out of my teaching experience here over these 8 years. The first point, as I mentioned, is that, of course, there is a family issue at the beginning, because they have not earned that confirmation or security that, as I mentioned earlier, after spending so many years, say after post graduation, they will have to spend so many years in doing research. So after then also, it is not sure whether they will get their permanent settlement or not. But apart from this hesitation of the common people or common parents, the student themselves are now becoming hesitant of pursuing their research career, especially in science subjects like ours, that is physics. I have seen many bright students who have actually given up their career. I'm saying in general, immediately after post graduation. But since girl students are also included there, as I said, it is 50-50 ratio. So, because I think that the period when a girl student can establish themselves as a researcher or as a scientist, that period itself overlaps with that when they are ready to get married, have families. So this is a point of concern, because instead of doing research or something like that, they prefer to go for getting married. They agree with their family's decisions, because I feel that somehow they just want to get some security, in terms of security, that one part of my job is done. So after, when they get married, basically there are a lot of issues, lot of problems that arise, as Rohini madam already said. Means in society like ours, actually, uh, we have so many responsibilities, right? But apart from that responsibility also, what I feel personally from my own experience, that even if there is no family restriction, but we ourselves, after getting married, after having our children, have so many challenges that we are not able to balance in between our personal and professional life. So this is one of the main concern I have. And for that, actually, what I feel is that girl students or female or women, they have to be very much determined. They have to be strong enough mentally as well as physically. Because if I want to cite my own example, I am struggling from my PhD days. My husband is on a transferable government job. So I have one girl child. So I am managing everything alone. So I have to be involved in many of the household activities apart from my teaching and research job. So that becomes really very, very difficult. And I too had this confusion in my mind, that whether I will continue or give up. So basically, we have to have a very strong mind. And for that, I think we have to become physically and mentally fit, to balance in between these two lives. Parallelly, I would also like to say that although our government has many schemes for women students, but definitely ultimately they have to go for some, seek some permanent settlement at the end, right? So they cannot continue with that. So there are some of the things I have noticed. And one more thing is that maybe as we are discussing about the stereotypes of the women students, those who are although bright cannot continue in their career, right? So maybe we have to help in some context those students basically. So proper mentoring can be helpful in this regard. So these are the three observations that I have uh, in my mind.
Thank you, Bulumoni. I think it's very correct in a lot of ways. And I would also like to take the opinion of Rohini before interceding with Ausrine and Patricia.
Thanks, Bulumani, for your view. Actually, the point, I see things somewhat slightly differently, and I'd like to say why. Of course, it is just to give some numbers because our French friends may not be familiar with the numbers. Let me tell you that we have even in PhD about 35% women. So in India, the drop off, I mean, as you said, BSc, MSc, PhD, we go from 40%, 45% to 30%, 35%. We have the real drop off while doing the postdoctoral position itself. And at the faculty level, particularly at the higher institutions of repute like mine, the percentage goes down to 10 to 11%. And when you go to the level of professors, deans, directors, it goes down to 2 to 3%. If you talk in terms of membership of academies and so on, that is again 3 to 4%. So in India, the drop off from a PhD to further careers in science and then to leadership position is just keeps on going worse and worse. But, and also it is assumed, and partially it is due to the reasons that Bulumoni said, that the time when you need to establish yourself as an independent scientist is exactly the time when your body clock is ticking. You have to have start a family because the body is not going to wait. But the point that people don't realize that just like the body clock is ticking, the clock of science is also ticking. If you take a break, you're not going to be able to come back with full vigor. And in India, we have many which sound very good schemes for women to come back to science after a break. There are, but I think what we need is not just those. What we need is the schemes or thinking first to realize that when women don't want the break, want to take necessarily a break, whether support structures can be created so that you don't have to be a superwoman, you don't have to be a Bulumoni to be able to achieve this. That is not fair on anybody. So I think the need of the time, and this is what I am advocating very strongly, is that you have to try and change this outlook that we are looking at these methods to improve the lot of women. No, you want to do it so that you wouldn't lose women who are trained in science. Science won't lose them. So I think if the administrators and the societies appreciate that, there are a lot of very small measures. And I'm very proud to tell you that the Science and Technology Innovation Policy of 2020 that has been announced by the Indian government actually has thought of such small measures that can go a long way. A simple small measure is that each institute must have a creche. And these kinds of very small, even postdoctoral students should have access to a creche. Creche is not only for the permanent faculty members. Try to give on-site accommodation for young postdocs and young faculty members, particularly women, because the two times when you want to have children and start family and you want to develop your lab are exactly the same times. And I believe that it is with such external measures, women can continue, because if they continue, they will go to the higher places. What happens is that there is either a break or there is a slowdown. So it's like there is a speed breaker, and then you slow down your car. After that, look, you're gone, because others have gone ahead 10 miles and you're never going to catch up with them unless you work, sometimes superhuman. And that is not correct. That's not fair. So this is my take on this, that we have to develop support structures in the institutions, in the society. And I am happy to tell you that at least in policy, the Indian policy at present is already thinking of these. So not as a charity to women, not as a help to women, but as help to science. That's the idea.
Great point made. And now we know that why, it's different perspectives and different elements which leads to this difference in the ladder, in the skewness. And I can see Patricia and Ausrine both smiling while Rohini was speaking. So I'm really excited to see what you both have to say about this, because the familial setup, the support system, everything is very, very different in France compared to India. And I don't know whether it's more difficult or easy that way. So what is your take on this thing? How supportive is the system for women to engage in high level, science and technology in France?
Okay, I answer first. Okay, so I guess it's mine, because I think I completely agree with both Bulumoni and Rohini. But okay, I would say how it happens in France. In fact, as I mentioned previously, there is no any discrimination, so positions are open for both. However, unfortunately, the role of a woman is more than professional. We have other tasks that we have to accomplish at the same time, like having children and raising children, and we have to take care of our families. In the opposite, and it's the opposite for men. Just to give you a specific example, I know that there are some women who have to stop working for some months in France. For example, the maternity leave it lasts for 4 months. I don't know how it is in India, but here is 4 months at least. And I know that some women prefer to stay longer at home to take care of that baby, which is finally a newborn, and he or she needs his or her mother. So there is also some consensus task that we have many tasks that we have to accomplish at the same time. Of course, we want to have a perfect job, have a good position, promotions, etc. But at the same time, we have our family tasks. Well, because we have to take care of our young children, and also sometimes we also have to take care of our husbands. So that's another point. So and because of that, I would say that there is implicitly maybe a preference to hire men more than women, because men, they don't have to stop working because they don't once they get married, they don't get pregnant. They are never pregnant. When the child is born, they stopped in France only 11 days, and that's all. They can continue working, and whereas women we have something. Sometimes it's related to health. We cannot be ready to work just after giving birth. So there are all those problems, which finally they come from nature. Naturally, we have women. We have other tasks that we cannot give to men. We have children. We are the only ones who can do that. And Rohini, she mentioned a wonderful woman. So at one moment, I don't know, maybe we want to become wonderful women. So the woman who performs well at work, in his family, in everywhere, but sometimes it's not possible, and we have no choice. And because of that, I think that even if both have the same opportunities, men and women, even when they finish their studies, that they can get the same job. But as long as we climb in the ladder for the positions, I think that at the end, women have occupy less, I will say less high position than men, and also the salary is smaller. So that's what statistics show.
Yes, I think this is also quite valid, and even though it shows that the social structure is very different in India and France, still there's a lot of this problems which is existing, most of biological problems. But then to change this thing, Ausrine, I would also, when you are highlighting these points, I would also like to ask you whether whether there is enough support system at your university, or do you implement this at a very application level to this support women who are who has to take a break or who has to stay away from work for some time and they come back? What are the kind of support systems that work in a university? So I would like you to highlight that point as well.
So I would like to start from my personal example, because I'm not French originally. I'm Lithuanian. And I came to do my PhD to France from Lithuania, and I came with a small boy alone. My first child was born on the first year of my PhD. So I was alone, without my family, without my husband, nobody in France. And I'm very, very grateful to France for the hospitality, all the support for the childcare. There is everything what is needed, and we have financial support for the students. It means that the government helps to pay the childcare, but is not the case in all other countries, for example, United States. Yeah. So in France, it costs you nothing. They help you also for the supports for the for the accommodation, for the childcare. So you can go and work a normal day as a man do, and your child is safe, and then the children start to go to school very early and 3 years old and so on. So of course we have duties at home and so on, all these tasks, each daily life tasks. But in France, advantage that even if you don't have financial situation, they will help you. You will not be left. And I'm very grateful for France for all this help that they gave me to raise my child and to finish my PhD. And I finished my PhD in 3 years. And so it's very nice country, France. I think one of the best countries in the world. I would say like this, France, for the childcare, education, free education, and all the helps that you're given, social helps. So it's one thing. Then, of course, the break for the children, raising the children after the birth is quite short in France with respect like Northern European countries, which is 1 year or 2 years break. In France, just a few months, let's say. But anyway, in Europe, it's accepted when they evaluate their career of a woman to add per children 1 year or 2 years. They raise down your age, saying instead of being 40, you are 37 if you have 2 children, right? So it's quite nice because it helps you to catch a little bit. If you compare with a man, let's say you are younger a little bit because you have children for that. And then, I mean, for foreigners now in universities, we have Euro Access services, which helps you to find accommodation, to take all these administrative tasks, you know, for the security, social security, and the things like this, and the visa issues and things like this. So France, it's putting a lot, you know, in welcoming people and helping young women with all these things. Basically, universities, we don't have like special childcare services, but governments puts locally, we have a lot. So we don't need to have our own, you know, but we have many different types of childcare that everyone may have. So the children basically they don't cost a lot when you have, but it depends on your revenue. If you are rich, then they cost, of course.
Of course, of course. No, it's a very important thing, especially you're not coming from France and making the statement that what the government is doing. So we just have exactly 1 minute and this whole thing is going to shut down. So I would like to chat with all of you much more. So before closing, Rohini, I know has something to say. Can you just say in like 20 seconds if you can?
No, I can, because what I have heard from Nasreen is exactly what I was going to say. Okay. And I know this about France, in fact. The point is that I want to say this to Patricia, that bearing the children is only something that a woman can do, but rearing a child, everybody can do.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Sooner we get them to understand it, the better it can be. And in fact, this kind of academic age versus physical age is something that India is now proposing. So I just wanted to express my happiness at the things that are already in place in France.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. It's a very positive note on this. We can close this session. So I would like to thank each and every one of you being part of this. And it was very, very engaging and very insightful. I can already see that the participants are really happy and looking forward to really spread their wings and fly high and go to France and join your universities. And if you want to know more information about H universities, please visit the booth. And once again, thank you all the panelists on behalf of the French Embassy of India, Campus France, and French Institute in India for joining this webinar. Thank you all and for listening as well, all the audience here. And I hope this could inspire you a lot. And so have a good evening and bye-bye.